Most businesses are run from the top down. So the people who actually serve customers, drive trucks, put money in the till, are told what to do and have to follow lots of rules and processes. And if they don't, they get told off. In our business, those on the front line can do whatever they want, whatever they think is right. As long we only have two rules: you put the money in the till and you look the part, and the rest they can do whatever they think is right. All we're interested in is, are you happy? Are you doing everything you can to give amazing service? And are you following our two rules?
Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishnan Guru-Murthy, and this is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. My guest this week is James Timpson. James is the CEO of Timpson's, the retailer, and they include not just the shoe repair stores where you might get your keys cut or your shoes repaired, but Snappy Snaps and a couple of other big brands where you might get your watches repaired. And he has written a book called The Happy Index, Lessons in Upside Down Management, which is a delve into Timpson's pretty well-known unconventional management philosophy, which comes from James's father, I guess. Sir John, is that right?
Yeah, sort of a combination of him, me, and picking up lots of ideas from other businesses we've seen and been inspired by, really.
Now, let's get through the words first. So what is upside down management?
So upside down management is pretty simple. Most businesses are run from the top down. So the people who actually serve customers, drive trucks, put money in the till, are told what to do and have to follow lots of rules and processes. And if they don't, they get told off. In our business, those on the front line can do whatever they want, whatever they think is right. As long we only have two rules: you put the money in the till and you look the part, and the rest they can do whatever they think is right. And everyone else's job is not to tell them what to do, but to support them.
And when you say they can do whatever they want, just explain a little bit more about what that means.
So imagine you're working in one of our shops and you want to give someone a discount, you want to give something away for free, you want to change the displays, you order whatever stock you want, you decide when you're going to have a break, you can even paint the shop pink if you want. It's your shop, you do whatever you think is right to give amazing service to your customers. And so all we're interested in is, are you happy? Are you doing everything you can to give amazing service? And are you following our two rules? That's it.
And the idea is that a happy workforce means a successful business.
Yeah. And every time we measure happiness, that where in our business colleagues are happiest, we make the most amount of money. So instead of trying to make lots of financial decisions around how you make profit, just focus on our colleagues being really happy. And that's how you make money. It's much easier, it's much more fun, and it requires much less cost of overhead.
And this is sort of a how-to book for people in business, isn't it?
Yeah.
For how to manage. So when you called it the Happy Index. What is the Happy Index?
So the Happy Index is our annual colleague survey. So in our business, everyone's a colleague. We don't do staff or teams or anything like that. And the way we run the business is, I measure the cash flow every day. We have monthly profits and the normal things that everyone else would look at. But the one barometer that is important is, what is your Happy Index score? So if you're an area manager in our business, you probably have 100, 120 colleagues reporting to you, 40 shops, something like that. And on April the 1st, all your colleagues will receive a survey. And it's one question: on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate your area manager for their kindness to you? And if you want to write a comment, you can. And we get them all back and we measure the scores. And if you get a really good score, which most of our area managers do, fantastic. If you get a bad score, we've got a problem, because your job is not to make us lots of money. Your job is to make sure your colleagues are happy. And if they're happy and all the acts of kindness and support you can give them, they perform really well. A happy, engaged team perform really well and give really good service. So measure that. Don't bother on all the other controlling financial factors, because it doesn't make that much difference.
But this is not just about some sort of genius management metric to create money, is it? Because Timpson's is a family business. You go back generations. I've heard your father talk about the philosophy of the business many years ago. So tell me about how this really came about as an idea to run a business.
Well, we've always been a paternalistic family business. There's always been a culture of supporting everybody. Everybody who works in the business is part of the family, and you treat everybody as part of the family. And there's this story, I don't know whether it's true or not, there's a story that the founder in 1865, he left his village in Northampton to go to Manchester to work with his uncle. and to start selling shoelaces on his bicycle. And he got on the wrong train because he'd never been on a train before, ended up in Sheffield on the train station, slept the night on the station, didn't know what to do, didn't have any money. And this man came up to him and gave him some money to get to Manchester. So ever since then, there's always been this philosophy of you help people who need support. And it sort of carried on as a sort of a very much a family business, looking after people, recognizing long service. And then the business lost its way in the 70s. The business was sold by my grandfather. My dad bought it back. And then when I started working in the business when I was 15, 16 years old, because I was a boss's son, I could do whatever I wanted because no one told me off. And I remember working our Cannon Street shop not far from where we are here today. And I doubled the turnover. And then I went to the one on Cheapside and I tripled the turnover. And I wasn't the world's best shoe repairer. I was still not world's best shoe repairer. But one, I was honest. And I think in Cheapside, they certainly weren't putting all the money in the till. But because I could do discounts and deals and phone up the warehouse and they would send me what I wanted, I could just take more money. And also, bizarrely, because I could give things away for free, more customers kept coming back and back. So I thought, well, if I can do this and I didn't have to abide by all the rules, why can't other people? And then I started to look outside to other businesses. I went to the States, and there's a business called Richer Sounds that do hi-fi. And Julian, who's a good friend of mine now, he wrote this book called The Richer Way. And every page I turned over was like, that's how you do it. That's how you do it.
He's the guy who gave the business to his employees.
Yeah, he did the EOP. Yeah, and he's an amazing guy. And I went to the States, Southwest Airlines, a number of other businesses, so did it the same way. And that gave me the confidence to sort of translate this freedom and giving people the trust to run their business, and also how you incentivize them through kindness. And then I remember a number of conversations sitting down with my dad saying, how do we do this? How do we communicate it? And we just sort of went from there. But it took 3 years until people started to believe us. And really, it was 5 years from when we started that it actually really started to happen.
But you make a profit. It's not that you don't believe in making money, is it?
We're very profitable.
You know, you're not a social enterprise.
No, we're not. But this is a strange form of capitalism, which is the more you give your people, the more benefits you give, the more days off, the more dreams come true, the more holiday homes we buy for our colleagues, the more money we make. So even when COVID happened, which was a disaster for us, you know, we're like the worst business for COVID. You know, we paid everyone 100% all the way through. We didn't sell any holiday homes. We kept doing all of our benefits. And your people recognize that. And I think the customers who come into our shops in turn recognize that.
Just explain the holiday homes, because you have holiday homes for free.
Yeah, so we have 19 holiday homes where basically if you work for us for a year, you can apply to the holiday home team with the dates you want to go. And if you've got kids, you can go and you have preference to school holidays. And it's all free. And as long as you pay to get there and your food and drink when you're there, it's all yours. So a lot of them are on Haven Holiday Parks and sort of coastal areas. We've got one in Turkey and one in Northern Ireland. And colleagues love it. It's fantastic.
Now, if you're sort of asking people to measure their own happiness, I mean, aren't some people just miserable?
Yes.
For their own reasons that have nothing to do with you or work. Mm. How does that interact with Timpson's?
So we also measure happiness every week, but not everyone does it. So we basically have this survey that goes on a Thursday night, says on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? And our average, we were down last week, we were 8.2 last week. Our average is about 8.5. So what we're interested in...
That's incredibly high.
It's not bad. It's pretty good. But what we're interested in is if you score yourself every week 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, and then you give yourself a 4, then it's your area manager's, your line manager's job to phone you up to say, listen, I've noticed the score's low. Let me come and have a chat with you, check everything's okay. But on the other hand, if you score yourself 4 all the time, which some people do, and then you give yourself a 10, we're worried about that as well, because we like people to sort of, that we know where they are.
So you've broken this down into 8 lessons. Let's just sort of spin through them briefly. The first one is assemble a high-performing super team and you will never have to worry. Is that just sort of a statement of the obvious?
Well, a bit, yeah, of course it is. But I think really what we're talking about is how do you recruit people who get your culture? Because not everybody would like our culture. Not everybody likes to be trusted and have the freedom. Quite a lot of people like the boundaries, and we don't really have boundaries. And also in our business, a lot of our colleagues are working in a shop on their own, and they have to do everything, repair shoes, cut keys, develop photos. So the way we do it is we recruit just on personality. So a CV for us, waste of time.
You're not interested in the qualifications?
No, not zero. Name and phone number is all we need, and we'll interview anybody, because I could train you to repair watches within 4 or 5 days, but I can't train you to have a different personality than you have.
And is that same for management and people who are sort of in your head office, if you like?
Everybody. So predominantly we recruit from within. So succession planning is a really important part of our job. We're doing it all the time. And so so for our shops, we're looking for people who are fun, interesting, engaging, sparky, a bit eccentric is fine, energetic. And that's the same for our IT colleagues, our finance colleagues, and our online colleagues too, because our culture is very specific. It fits those kind of people. So
if you're shy and quiet, Timpson's isn't for you.
It's not really for us. We don't think you'd be happy here. You may be the world's best shoe repairer and really like our values, but you won't thrive because it's not that kind of culture that'll work for you.
Is that a good bias though? I mean, people, you're kind of scoring people on their personality rather than their ability. And some people, it's not anyone's fault that they are the way they are. They just are the way they are.
Because the thing is, when you go into one of our shops, you won't remember whether the carpet was clean or whether all the light bulbs are on. You probably won't remember how much it cost you. You'll remember how good the person was who served you.
I'll also remember how good the shoe resoling is.
Yeah.
Which might be really good from somebody with not a Timpson's personality.
But the ones with our personality take the most amount of money.
Right. Okay, well, next, if you build it, they will come. How to have a great company culture. What does that mean?
So our culture of upside down management is, the stronger our culture is, the more successful the business is. And one of our problems has been, as we've grown, that culture has been challenged a lot, especially as we've done acquisitions. Whenever we buy another business, we normally buy businesses from the administrators because it's cheap and I just find it easier fixing them. But culturally, it's a real problem. And again, it takes 3 to 5 years to really integrate a business into our culture, because it just takes a long time to make sure you've got the right people, but also they trust your culture. Because we can go along and say, you have your birthday off, we have these holiday homes, you can have a dreams come true, but they don't believe it until they really experience it.
And so when you've taken over businesses and you inherit employees, you must have a load of employees who are the wrong kind of person.
Yes.
In your terms. What do you do?
We do it with kindness, but some of the things we do, for example, we prefer full-time colleagues rather than part-time colleagues. So we try and encourage everyone to join us full-time. Not everyone can do that. Some people leave. And also, we like our colleagues to be able to move around a lot. So even though in one of our shops you may see the regular colleague over and over again, actually about 80% of our shops, colleagues are moving around quite a lot. So we sort of test people in different shops, and sometimes they thrive and sometimes they don't. But one of the things that I'm very enthusiastic about is when someone is not going to be happy with us, we help them be happy somewhere else. And a lot of companies don't like those difficult conversations, but I don't think it's fair someone who's fantastic having to work alongside someone who isn't fantastic.
So how do you help somebody be happy somewhere else? Are you talking about references? Or?
References, loads of time off for interviews. We help them get jobs elsewhere, and we just really support them and encourage them.
How do you help someone who you don't think is good enough to work for you get a job somewhere else? How does it work?
By being kind. So, for example, imagine I'm your area manager, and say, right, this is what we want to do. This is where we see the business going. This is where we see your role going, and we don't think it's right for you. If you want to have a go, that's fantastic. But listen, let's have this conversation now. I think you'd be much happier doing something else, but we'll give you the time, and we'll support you all the way until you find it.
You've also written in here about how you deal with dishonesty and misconduct. What's different about the way you deal with that?
We're quick. Our dishonesty is basically colleagues stealing from the till. We don't really have customers. You can't really go into one of our shops and steal something. There's nothing really to steal. And it's about just being really, really quick on it. And if someone sort of goes against our culture, act really fast. And one of the things that we see in other businesses that we take on or we hear about, as soon as you get involved with a long-winded HR process, you're stuck. You just want to have that honest conversation with people. But no one wants to come home and tell their loved ones that they've been caught stealing. So we help them do it graciously.
What does that mean?
It means say, listen, right, I think it's probably best if we part company rather than having this investigation.
Exit,
quiet exit,
right. Lesson 3 is to get ahead, you've got to get about.
Yep.
That's for the boss.
Yep. So for me, the exciting bit about the business is going around shops. I love going around shops, do it 2-3 days a week, meeting the colleagues, serving customers, finding out what's going on, finding the problems, looking for opportunities. And whilst it's tempting to stay in the head office, I think a leader's job is to operate at the strategy level and on the shop floor and don't get involved in the middle bit. And it's really easy to get sucked into the middle bit of day-to-day fixes, operational plans, and so on. But the best ideas come from the colleagues who are serving customers every day.
Can you give me an example? I mean, what have you learned from being out and about following people?
Oh, well, let me give you one big example, watch repairs. So we never used to do watch repairs. And I remember going to West Brom 15 years ago, and we had a new colleague who joined us called Glenn, and he was working there, and he had this little sign in the window, a handwritten sign saying, watch straps and batteries, £1.50. So I said to him, I didn't know you did watch repairs, Glenn. And he thought he was going to get told off. And I said, well, how much have you taken this week? He said, £250. I said, this is amazing. So now, up until Glenn's just retired, but at the end, he was running a team of 70 in a workshop in Wolverhampton, doing our central watch repairs. So the ideas come from there, and even small ones. So let me give you an example on car keys. So we do lots of car keys. It's quite technical. I don't really understand it. So we have a summit every quarter where there are 6 of our colleagues in the branches who love car keys. They get really excited when they wake up in the morning, they love car keys. We get them together and say, right, what are all the things we need to do to help you take more money on car keys? Rather than us going to suppliers or competitors, they know.
And what's your approach to remuneration and terms and conditions and benefits and all that kind of stuff? Are you any different to the other retailers?
So I think on the basic pay, we always pay above the national minimum wage, and that is becoming more and more of a struggle as it's going up so much. So we always pay above that, but really our differentiation is in our weekly bonus. So all of our colleagues in the shop, in fact, everybody in the business earns a bonus of some sort every year, but the big one is the shop bonus. So if you and I work in a shop during the week, we have a simple formula, which is you add up our wages together and times it by 4.5. And that sets a sales target each week. Anything over that, we get 15% of. So the average colleague is earning about £100 a week commission. But there are 2 incentives there. One is to go for every week, because a lot of businesses are based on quarterly targets and annual targets. Our colleagues think by the week. And the other is to have the wages as low as possible. So maybe that you're on holiday next week. So I'll say, right, I'll cover for you. So then my bonus target is lower. So that's that's the drug. Every business needs a drug. In your business, it may be viewing figures or whatever it is. Ours is the weekly bonus. And then when it comes to benefits, I want to do every benefit you can possibly have anywhere in the world. Because even though benefits cost you money, the benefit far outweighs that cost.
Lesson 4 is the state and the street, a story of government and business. So give me an example of how tracking government policy has helped you.
Well, we could talk about prisons here. We could talk about business rates. So rates, for example, is a mess. The apprenticeship levy is a complete mess. I've never met anybody who thinks it's workable at all. And I think some of these are well-intentioned, but they just don't work. And when it comes to prison policy, some of the things that have happened recently around employment have been really successful. But I feel sometimes that I'm trying to run a business with my hands tied behind my back.
I mean, you've been a big champion of employing ex-offenders. Tell me a little bit about that and what your lessons have been.
So 1 in 9 of my colleagues is someone with prison experience, I think is the latest word. And it started as I just wanted to give someone a second chance who I met on a prison visit. And then I got a bit carried away and wanted to help more and more people. And it's got to the stage now where 1 in 9 of my colleagues are ex-offenders, which means that they're all, I don't even know who's from prison and who's not. No one cares in our business. We just want to recruit people who are talented and have the right personality.
And you don't care about their offence. They might.
We do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we do. So we don't recruit sex offenders. We don't recruit people who've got drug and alcohol issues that mean that they can't hold down a full-time job. And we don't recruit people who just haven't come to the end of their criminal life. So I would say if you were looking at 100 people leaving prison today, I'd interview 20 to 30, of which I'd take on 3 or 4. So we're still very selective. A lot of the colleagues who join us are in for drug offences, death by dangerous driving. We do have some lifers. We've got a high proportion of women from prison who work for us. And it's been one of the best things we've done. Not just because it's giving people a second chance, because they're brilliant and they're talented and they're loyal and they work hard. Even though some customers come into our shops thinking everybody in the business has been to prison, including myself, and I haven't. Although I go to prison about once every couple of weeks recruiting or doing other prison stuff.
I mean, what is your experience of working with ex-offenders made you feel about prison and sentencing?
We're addicted to sentencing. We're addicted to punishment. So many of the people who are in prison, in my view, shouldn't be there. A lot should, but a lot shouldn't. And they're there for far too long, far too long. And that's just getting worse and worse. I meet people in prison regularly who are serving sentences longer than they've ever been alive for already. And I just think it's just, this is common sense being ignored, evidence being ignored, because there is this sentiment around punish and punish.
How would you change that?
I would just look at the evidence. So let me give you an example in Holland, which I know lots of people like to use the Dutch as an example. They've shut half their prisons, not because people are less naughty in Holland, it's because they've got a different way of sentencing, which is community sentencing. So people can stay at home, keep their jobs, keep their homes, keep reading their kids' bedtime stories. And it means that they're far less likely to commit crime again. I
mean, it's a cultural thing around punishment, isn't it? That we are kind of stuck in a sort of a Victorian mindset.
Yeah.
In a way. You've done something wrong, therefore you must pay the price.
Yeah, and a custodial sentence is not always the right thing for people. I mean, in very crude terms, and you'll get people who completely disagree with me on this, we have 85,000 people in prison. It's going to go up to 100,000 pretty soon. A third of them should definitely be there. There's another third in the middle, which probably shouldn't be there, but they need some other kind of state support. A lot of them have got massive mental health issues. They've been in prison, in and out of prison all their lives. And then there's another third, and there's a large proportion of women. Prison is a disaster for them because they're just putting them back in the offending cycle.
And given how many ex-offenders are working for you, I mean, what have you discovered about who goes back to offending? What proportion of those people end up stealing from you?
Very low.
Or from someone else?
Yeah, very, very low. But when I first started, it was higher because I was still working it out. So in crude terms now, we don't recruit men under the age of 25 from prison because they're just not mature enough. And from our experience, they won't stay and often they'll get back into their old ways. But female offenders from 19, absolutely fine. But if I recruit someone from prison, they're more honest, stay with me longer, and more loyal, and more likely to get promoted. I don't know if you've ever been into a prison, but when you walk around, you need people who've just got that. They get that point in life where they just want a job and they don't want to disappoint their family again. They've got kids on the way, they've got somewhere to live, family and stuff.
How would you go about that sort of cultural change to try and change the way people think about prison?
I think we need a government that's brave. I think we need a government that's prepared to take the politics out of sentencing. And I think we need to have a government that is prepared to accept that we can't afford as a country to build £4 to £6 billion worth of prisons to house more people. So it just doesn't make sense at all.
Okay, well, let's come back to lesson 5, succession planning and the future of your business.
Absolutely vital. For us, succession planning, our culture works when people are promoted up through the business. Whenever we recruit someone to a senior role from somewhere else, and they could have been incredibly successful and amazing, it just takes too long, really, to get the culture. So we prefer to recruit from within. So we have loads of these succession meetings. So virtually every role of responsibility, we want someone who is lined up to take on that role. We're training them up for it. And there may be even another one in that role as well. And that's so for me, that's my sleep well at night management stuff. As long as I've got someone lined up to take that job, I don't panic.
Are you a product of succession planning?
Yes, I am.
Your dad worked out that you were going to get the job?
Well, I wouldn't say it was that logical.
Did you ever have any doubt that you were going to go into the family business?
No,
Because a lot of, particularly in retail, small retail, loan traders, sole traders, the trouble is that their kids don't want to take over the business.
Yeah, and I loved it. I loved it from day one. I was working in the shops when I was 15, just loved serving customers, putting money in the till. Even now, when I go into a shop, I love that sound of just, the till going and putting money in the till. My sister wasn't really that interested.
It's a tap on a machine now, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think 85% of our transactions is tap on machine now. My sister was never really interested. One of my brothers is a Tory MP, not for much longer because he's stepping down. And I have two adopted brothers who not really engaged in the business. So in some ways, I was really lucky that, I had this opportunity, but also I'd have actually really liked having a sibling to work along. I've got a number of friends who work together in their family businesses, and it's not without its challenges, but I would have really liked that.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about family because, again, your parents became quite well known for having fostered a huge number of kids while you were growing up. What was that like?
Chaotic. When I look back, it was bonkers some of the time. I remember when it all first started. So my mum died 8 years ago, and she was always loved kids. She was a nanny before she got married, and then when she had the three of us, I think she just had this. My dad was away working a lot. I think she just wanted kids around. So she signed up as a foster care. In those days, the maximum time they could stay with you would be 6 months, and then they would go to somewhere else. And I remember we turned up one morning for breakfast on school day, and these two kids had arrived in the middle of the night, and they were there wearing our school clothes. And that was Simon and Sean, the first foster children. And they stayed with us 6 months, and they went back to a children's home. And then more and more came, and more and more came. And my mum just became really passionate about these kids. And it was just the volume. I think she had 97 foster children in her fostering career. And some were amazing. Some were great fun. Some used to play football with me in the garden. Some were an absolute nightmare. The language some of them used. We had pets murdered, the greenhouses smashed up, cars smashed up. It was pretty high stress at times.
How old were you when?
7 when it first started.
So did you feel displaced? Did you feel neglected as a result? Or?
No, my parents were always really good. We always were very loved, and we always knew that we were the sort of the core family. But we also had a responsibility to help my mum and my dad with these kids. We're sort of part of the team.
So they weren't treated the same. They weren't treated as if they were.
I think they would have
your
felt
parents'
that,
children.
I think they would have. They were. They came on holiday with us. It was completely normal. But my parents were very good. We were very loved. I'd never felt that I was missing out on my childhood. When I look back now, I think it was amazing to share my life with these people who had. I had a very privileged upbringing. These kids had nothing. A lot of the time I was sitting outside Style Prison for hours on end in my mum's car with my brother and sister while my mum took the babies to go and see their mum in prison. It was pretty fruity. We used to have methadone in the fridge all the time. We used to have a sign saying, don't touch the methadone. We could have the Calpol, but not the methadone.
Or because some of the kids were on methadone.
Yeah.
And how did that leave you feeling about fostering yourself or doing something similar?
I wouldn't foster myself because I do think you can bring damaged kids into your family, and you've got to be pretty robust to do that. I suppose my outlet has been on the prison side of things, giving people a second chance that way. And there's lots of other things we do around supporting children and especially foster carers. I do think it's a gamble, but I do think it's incredible what foster carers do. The big difference now is if you're a foster carer, you can keep children for much more than 6 months. It could be years. They will become much part of the family. And I think that is probably a lot easier than we used to have, because literally they'd become part of the family and then just go. And that was traumatic for my mum, but also quite traumatic for us, especially some of the good ones.
Let's come back to the book then. Lead by example. Easier said than done?
I think it's about consistency and about trying to communicate well. So as a leader, there are lots of things I'm not very good at, but I just try and focus on the things that I believe are important and keep the culture alive. So I'd say most of my time is about going around the business, talking to people and communicating.
And you can do what you want as well, presumably.
Yeah,
If that's
which
the
is
culture
great.
of the business.
Yeah,
So
it does help that your boss is your dad, I suppose.
yes, I suppose. But I mean, you could cause chaos in that situation, couldn't you? In a management culture, you could promote whoever you want, or
Yeah,
bend the rules for somebody, or say, we'll take 3 months off to deal with whatever it is.
Yeah, and you see that in family businesses where things start going wrong. So we have 3 children, and they're all just now all left university, all in work. Our daughter works for Marks and Spencer's on their grad scheme, and our 2 boys are both in the business, and they know they have to prove themselves. They need to work harder and achieve more than anybody else if they're going to get promoted.
What's your attitude towards executive pay then? I mean, do you think there's a ratio above which it's wrong to go for top people?
I don't buy the argument that you need to pay someone £5 million a year for them to run a company. It's a privilege to run a company. And the way you earn decent money for me is having a long-term plan. And I worry about companies that pay high levels of pay because often they have to do it because people don't stay. So they've always got to keep bringing new people in all the time. So my view on executive pay is I pay my colleagues the going rate for the job, and I pay them a big bonus if we do well.
Right. Navigating difficult situations in the workplace. What does that mean?
Let me give an example. So colleagues of concern. Every month I get a list of probably about 30 colleagues who are having problems, health problems, normally health problems with kids, relationship issues, debt issues, and so on. And it's our job to support them. They've been good colleagues in the past, they'll be good colleagues in the future, but these factors that are impacting them away from work need to be supported. So I have a colleague called Janet, who's our Director of Happiness, and she spends a lot of her time with colleagues who are actually unhappy. A number of our colleagues will get into problems with money. They can afford to replace the tyres on the car, but if the exhaust goes as well, problem. So we like to give them money, lend money, but if they don't come to us and talk to us, they get into trouble. It's Janet's job to go and sit in their front room and go through all the bills, work out a plan. We pay off the loan sharks. We do that quite a lot. So it's a case of having a culture.
So do you have your own lending scheme, basically?
Yeah. Oh, we've got about 300 grand lent out at any one time. Virtually everyone pays it back. A colleague has asked for £2,700 because she's moving into a flat with no boiler and she's getting carbon monoxide poisoning. And she's a really good colleague. So we've given her a £700 loan and given her £2,000 as a freebie from us. So it's our way of saying, we'll get you out, we'll help you. Thanks for coming forward to us. And
what do other business leaders say to you about the way you run your business? Do you get a lot of sort of like, well, it's all right, you just do shoe repairs. That's fine for your bit, but we're in grown-up businesses.
Yeah, I think they think I'm really uncommercial. They think I'm uncommercial because, we have all these benefits and we pay for this and actually I would say I'm the most commercial business person you're going to come across. I'm pretty tough, but I know that this is the right way to inspire people to perform. I also think that they think, oh, we're a family business, we'll be old-fashioned and, it'll be, jobs to the boys, that sort of stuff. Again, no. I'm always on the lookout for the best people to come through. But our business is different and we have a long-term view. And I've been the chief exec for 22 years and hopefully I'll certainly do another, 10 or something like that. So it is different.
But do you think these ideas are translatable to every business?
Completely. And I can give you
not just business, every workplace.
Yeah. I can give you a number of examples of businesses where they run along very similar lines, successful business. Admittedly, a lot of family businesses where it's easier to justify. It'd be very difficult to, if I was running a PLC, to justify, if profits are down, why we bought another 3 holiday homes. Yeah. I can see that. But actually, when times are difficult, you want to spend, that's when you want to buy the three holiday homes.
Can you imagine what the Daily Mail would say if the civil service had a director of happiness in every department?
It would be a difficult one to answer. I think, but ironically, I think the public service is not good at HR. They've got so many HR people who are, I'm sure lots of them are really good at HR, but the culture of the public sector means that it's very difficult for them to do these things, but these things work.
Why? What's wrong? What do they get wrong?
It's very process driven. It's very regimented. Say someone is turning up late for work. They will just go down the HR process, letters, disciplinary. We'll just sit down and say, Brian, why are you late? What's happening? What can we do to help? So we're quick in getting over them.
And what if Brian is just a bit useless?
we'll have that chat. And if it's not going to work out, then we'll say, why don't you be happy? Maybe we should help you find your happiness elsewhere.
Then you find them get a job with a later start.
By the way, the happiness elsewhere one, I stole from Disney. I spent a few days behind the scenes at Disney in Florida, and they were brilliant at the whole HR stuff.
Elaborate.
So let me give you an example. So everyone's a cast member there, so they sort of big it all up. And give you one standards. So they're very particular on standards. And everyone's job description at Disney, you have to pick up litter from the chief exec to someone who's just joined. And just before you go out into the park, they have a big mirror, and it says check, 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 hair and everything else. And then they have a vending machine with combs, deodorant, razors. So if anybody's not perfect, then so now in our shops, we have a no excuse box with deodorant, spare ties, badges, hairbrush, and that sort of stuff. And culturally, there's so many great examples about how they have consistently high levels of customer service alongside consistently high levels of standards.
Your final lesson is give back to get more. What does that mean?
I think, and again, this may sound really uncommercial, but the more jobs we do for free in our shops, the more profit we make out of our shops. The more money we give to support our colleagues and their charities, the more money we give to good causes, the better we seem to do. And one of the things that I believe, business is there to make profit, but it's also there to do good things. And one of the things that we measure is the amount of philanthropy that we can do as a business to help the societies that we trade from. So on the free jobs, we ask our colleagues every day to do a random act of kindness for two reasons. One is actually good for your health, to do a random act of kindness every day. And the other is great customer service. Let me give you one of the examples that we do a lot. In our Max Spielman and Snappy Snap shops, we get a lot of customers coming in to develop a photo, to put in a frame, to put in a coffin for a funeral. So they're walking in distressed, grieving, so we always give it for free. And customers can't believe it, and they always come back, and it's a really nice thing to do for someone in your community. And so we're actually encouraging our colleagues to do more and more things for free. Holes in belts, bit of a glue here, someone's having a tough time, free. And I just think it may sound really uncommercial, but the more we do, the more money we seem to make.
Because you're building relationships with people.
We're building and no one does it anymore. No one really gives you freebies. It's always, you're part of a process. So one of the things that helps is our tills in our shops is basically a calculator with a cash drawer. They're not linked up to any head office. There's no pre-programming. It's just literally you press $9.99, she repairs, that's it. So it means they have the flexibility to charge what they like.
And do your people have to account for anything that they've given away?
No, not at all.
They don't have to enter it into the till and say, I gave somebody a £2.
No, we're not bothered.
Insult.
No, not at all.
So how do you work out, how do you do your balance sheet then? I mean, isn't there stuff that will be missing or inputs and outputs that don't quite add up?
Well, when we do our stock take, so we know when someone hasn't given enough stuff away for free because their margin's too high, so we do it that way. So come on, you're being a bit mean, be a bit more generous.
So if you could change the world in any way, how would you change it?
I would like all businesses and organizations to state every year what they've contributed to society as a percentage of their profits, a percentage of their income, a percentage of whatever they do. And that way we can measure the impact that organizations have, because I believe businesses should be a force for good in the world. I think they really are a force for good. We employ people, we help people, we provide a service to people. But I also think that it's hollow making money unless you give back.
And do you have those numbers for your own business?
Yeah. So in fact, our accounts are about to be filed, I think, next week. And 4.3% of our profits we contributed, went in philanthropy. But then I think if we add in all of the prison stuff we do, it's probably nearer 10%. But for us, around about 4 to 5% is about where we want to pitch it.
I mean, do you think there's a bigger story to tell here, which kind of pulls together capitalism and politics and society around what you're talking about? I mean, you mentioned your brother in politics. I mean, you must have interesting dinner table chats about everything that's going wrong at the moment. Do you have bigger ideas or bigger ambitions than this?
Me personally?
Well, I mean, I don't mean necessarily for you, but I mean, you must have bigger thoughts as well.
So on my philanthropy, so I've been to Treasury 10 times about this, saying, why don't you just change the way, because directors' responsibilities are taken really seriously by directors. You have to do, whatever's in there, you have to do it. The auditors won't sign off unless you do it. So very simple. On the front page of every account, I have to put in now whether we make any political donations. We don't. But I have to state whether we made, how many people we employ, what we do, and our profit and loss. I also have to say, actually, what our charitable contributions have been, but it's on page 297. No one cares. No one looks at it. It should be on the front page, because if it's on the front page, journalists will look at it, and our competitors will be able to look at it, and they'll be able to see, you'll be able to compare. Let me give you an example. BP, Shell, and Exxon. If they all had to say on the front page how much they contributed to society, then you can measure how much they are doing compared to the competitors, and then you can judge how successful they are in other means. Because my view is the more you give, the more successful the business or organisation will be.
I suppose what I mean is, your business rules are very much about giving trust to your business and to business in general, and creating relationships between customers and business. And that is obviously the massive thing that is lacking in society at the moment, particularly with our politics. Do you have any thoughts on how politics could make itself more trustworthy right now?
I think it's about leadership. It's about the clarity of leadership. And it's about how our leaders are communicating and acting. And, I'm sure you've had lots sitting on this chair before, and you're looking at them and you say, yeah, I know you're not telling me the truth. This is a line. Just tell us the truth. But I don't know whether they ever will. But I think, as a public, the answers are often not that difficult, and it's not always about money. It's about vision, and it's about a collective good feeling, so the country feels it's on the front foot. But when you're on the back foot, it's hard to get back on the front foot, and that comes down to leadership. And it's not about, in my view, spending money. It's about a vision and an energy around understanding what needs to be done, and also avoiding it's just focus on the big stuff, avoid all the little things that don't make much difference.
James Timpson, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.